Hey folks, welcome back. So recently I've been talking a bit about the 2D20 system from Modiphius. I did a video recently introducing the count 'em, four different ways to start playing Star Trek Adventures. And in the process, I talked a little shit about the starter set. I'm not sure it totally deserved that, but when you're used to like opening a starter set from Chaosium and it's like Christmas with thousands of pages of stuff inside, the Star Trek one is a little underwhelming, and not getting PDF was a downer for sure. But I also talked a lot of positive shit about the Tricorder Deluxe set, which I love. I think it's, when you buy it from a store with a little bit of a discount, it's a great value. You get a full-on set of rules in there, you get all the tokens you need, you get a proper amount of dice in there, and you can just bring that to a table full of people and say, let's do Star Trek, and just do Star Trek. And so that kind of super starter set idea I thought was so cool. The tricorder style box was just an added bonus. And apparently that idea must have done well, because when Dune launched, they came out with this, which is the Agents of Dune role-playing campaign experience, but they referred to it in multiple places as a super starter set. So this is very much like what you get when you buy the Tricorder Deluxe. I think the list price for this is like £60 here in the UK. Most places you can get it for about 50 if you look around a little bit. And it's totally reasonable for what you get, because what you get is a proper whole campaign, like with loads of stuff. Check this out. You get a complete 116-page adventure with step-by-step guidance as you play, 5 character folios, which look really cool, 2 50-card decks with NPCs, assets, and traits for use during play, 3 handouts, and 4 zone maps that bring the experience of Arrakis to your gaming table, 54 tokens and 2 trackers for momentum, threat, and determination, a complete spice harvesting system to keep track of your successes or failures in running Arrakis, 5 custom D20s, which is all the dice you need, proper amount of dice, and you get a free digital copy of the core rulebook along with the box, which is fantastic. So it doesn't come in the box, but the rules that are in here are more than enough to get you started. And if you want to use all the systems, you can just go ahead and redeem that coupon in the box and get yourself a full copy of the rulebook for free on PDF, which is amazing. So if you're going to start Dune, this is a great way to do it. The adventure is cool. They give you House Nagara. You can see them here on the front. And if I'll try and open this, it's a very nice quality box. Everything's good quality. Comes with a nice read this first thing, which is kind of written in character. It's sort of, my dearest children, by now, blah, blah, our house has been chosen by the Emperor to take over all spice production on Arrakis, called Dune by the natives there. So it's kind of setting you up the background for the storyline. And this is the concept of the campaign. What if you ruled Arrakis? Forget about the Atreides. If they weren't chosen, but it was your house instead, how could you do? Would you take on the Harkonnens? Would you, subterfuge your way through them? Would you murder everyone? Would you produce any spice? Would you go bankrupt? What would happen? And this adventure lets you find out. And comes with these 5 beautiful character folios from the House of Nagara. It's got your adventure toolkit, it's laying out all the cool stuff that's in there, and then your core rulebook PDF. And the last page of the folio, I think, has, I don't know, there's a number somewhere that you can redeem, but I already redeemed it, so don't get excited. The last page of this gives you all the basics you need to know, so it serves as a kind of reference sheet. So there are different kinds of conflict in Dune. I think that's what trips up new players. There's a lot of different kinds of conflict in this game. You can do personal conflict, which is dueling, which is more complicated than it sounds. You can have skirmish, which is like, normal RPG combat, small group against another small group. You can have warfare, which is like fleets in space or armies on the ground. You can have espionage, which is spying activities. And you can have intrigue, which is social conflicts. They all work in similar ways, but they have enough differences that you have to kind of know what you're doing. And they're all, fully detailed in the core book. And the core book is beautifully written, by the way, so it's not too hard to get a handle on. They talk about basic things like moving assets. Moving assets from one zone to another costs you momentum. The use of zones is a big part of the game here, in the different kinds of conflicts. Ways of using assets, the attack sequence, how to try and resist defeat once per scene, and your uses of determination. So you can you have determination, which you can spend on a test where one of your drive statements, which we'll get into in a minute, applies without conflict with the action. You can gain determination, and then when you spend 1 point of it, you can get an automatic 1, which is a double success, basically, on a single die. You can re-roll any or all of your dice pool, You can declare something. You can create a new trait in the environment or change or remove an existing one that's like a bad thing. Or you can act again. So determination is really powerful, but in order to do it, you have to challenge yourself as a character, basically. So it's tough to get hold of. So they give you a nice intro there in that folio, and then you get this big, fat, old adventure book. Nice, perfect bound volume, again with a beautiful cover, lovely coloring, just plain black on the back. I'm not going to really show you too much beyond the first few pages because just to show you kind of the structure. So it gives you, ideas on setting up the game, a note for experienced GMs. So you might want to just, scan ahead and read stuff and kind of go for it. If you want to adapt the adventure so that, it's scaled down and you're not taking over all of Arrakis, you can do that. There's loads of guidance like that throughout here. Then there's, read aloud text to get things set up. And then the House of Nagara has their own kind of special devices that they can use. So you're supposed to read aloud these descriptions of the cool stuff they have, which kind of basically, which of the following devices they choose will determine their kind of vision for how the house is going to behave in the campaign in a way. So there's loads of like read aloud text and guidance. You got beautiful artwork for each section between the acts. And then for everything you need to do, then, it'll give you like some text to read aloud for the test. It'll tell you how to do the test, what the results will be, whether success or failure or whatever. You can give players cards as reminders for various things. It has all these little sort of pop-outs here that explain certain concepts like critical successes, difficulties, the use of laser weapons, and the problem of how they intersect with shields and can create atomic explosions, which is really, really bad and prohibited by all sorts of things. Shields, momentum, focus. Every page basically is introducing you to something. And from here on, we'll just kind of skip through. But you'll see, you can be coming from zero as far as game mastering and just jump right in, and you'll be absolutely fine. Because it really does give you guidance throughout. It tells you, when to use the different trackers, how they all work. It gives you, these are stats for, NPCs that they'll encounter, different soldiers, spice auditors. We've got Harkonnen spy masters. All kinds of cool characters appear. It feels like Dune from top to bottom because it basically is. It's just an alternate history where you are the Atreides replacement, basically. So the adventure is enough for quite a bit of play. The character folios are lovely. They give you a beautiful vision of what your character looks like. Description, so Shizu Nagara is a martial noble, the elder child of the ruler of the house. As such, you've been trained as a warrior and a leader. Play this character if you like being in charge and enjoy dueling and combat. And then when you open up, you get an explanation of basically how the Imperium works and what spice is and why Arrakis is a big deal. Then you have a little bit more background about the character. So her name, house, role, personality traits, and her ambition is to rule the house eventually. And then her character sheet. So she's got 3 talents. So during battle, she can be cool under pressure. When she attempts to test during battle, before rolling, you can spend determination to automatically succeed, but you generate no momentum. Or you have subtle step, so when you attempt to move test to sneak or otherwise pass unseen through an area, or when you attempt to move an asset subtly during a conflict, the first extra d20 you purchase for the test is free. So that's really nice as well. And the slow blade, so when she's attacking during a duel or a skirmish using a melee weapon, you may buy 1 or more dice by spending momentum. You may choose one of your enemy assets in the same zone as your attack, or you can ignore that asset during your attack. So you have a few options there. And you can see, basically, similar to the first 2D20 game we looked at, which was John Carter of Mars. The character sheets are actually pretty simple. She's got a few talents which are useful for certain things. She's got an asset, which is a rapier. So it's an ancestral blade of House Nagara, so that helps her with her dueling and fighting and stuff. And then you have these 5 drives and 5 skills. And for each test, you will pick a drive and a skill that apply. You can argue that with the DM. And if you have a focus, that applies as well. So let's say you're dueling somebody. you'll say, well, I want to use power because, I think dueling is one of my strengths, and this is where I feel the most useful. And I'm going to use battle, where my focus is dueling. And then so basically when you roll, you'll have a target number of 8 plus 6, which is 14, and anything that you get under your focus, which in this case would be obviously dueling because it's a duel, would count as 2 successes. So that's a major addition from the more simplified 2d20 in John Carter, is you have these focuses. These also appear in Star Trek, by the way. So some of your drives or skills will have a focus, and if you can apply that to the current situation, then any rolls under that will count as 2 successes instead of 1. And that represents your specialization in certain things. So she's really good at dueling. She's really good at pilot stuff and stealthing. She can sense danger really well, all that kind of stuff. Helps you just differentiate characters. And again, there's a player's reference on the other side of each folio, which is great. So, what your skills and drives represent, what traits can do for you. They're really important in this game, and they're actually really important in Star Trek as well. And I've seen Jim Johnson, the line developer for Star Trek, wishing that they emphasize traits more in the core rulebooks because people don't often realize how useful they are. But basically, positive traits in an environment or in a conflict can let you try something you couldn't do normally. So, skills that let you add a trait to something could allow you to try something you not normally do in that situation. It could make something easier to attempt. Like if you have, you want to use stealth with this character, she's really good at stealth, but the room's really clear. Maybe, you can create a trait of, you can kick up some sand or throw a smoke bomb or something, and then the difficulty reduces. You could make something harder to attempt for something else, or you could stop you from doing something you could normally do. So, and that could go again in either direction. Then it summarizes examples of the different difficulty levels. So again, like John Carter, that range from difficulty 0 to 5. Sometimes difficulty 0, you automatically succeed, but you might want to roll anyway to build up momentum. But there's the risk of getting a complication as well. It tells you how assistance works, how your dice pools work, how your complication range can change depending on how risky the task is. So that means complications can occur on anything from just a 20 to a range of 16 to 20. And a roll can be changed to a success if a character agrees to suffer a complication as well. So that's a nice little wrinkle. But yeah, that's everything you need to know to start playing as a player. And each folio is laid out basically the same way, but just gives you the specific traits and specialities of that individual. So then we have Jiro Nagara, charismatic noble, the younger child of the ruler of the house. You're not especially physical, so you've developed keen social skills. Play this character if you enjoy socializing and charming your adversaries. And then as we get, once again, the intro to the kind of game world. His ambition is to run House Nagara from the shadows. So he knows he's not the frontline guy, but he would like to be the spy master of sorts. So his highest drive is in duty, where he has a statement, repay what you owe. And then he's got a 7 in communicate and skills, so he's very good at deceit and persuasion. He's also good at observing and at etiquette. He's got 3 talents as well. Bold, so when you attempt to test using communicate, you buy additional d20s by generating threat for the game master. You may re-roll a single d20 in that dice pool. Hidden motives is another talent. You're a master at concealing your intentions. When an opponent fails to understand or communicate tests against you, you may immediately create a trait which reflects a mistaken belief they have about you. So you can create a trait, again, which really can help you. If the enemy believes something totally wrong about you, maybe they think that you're very naive rather than the deceit master that you are, and that could really help you throughout the rest of the scene, Masterful Innuendo. When you attempt to communicate test, you can choose to increase the difficulty by +1 to conceal a hidden message within your words. You must state who is the intended recipient of the message. People other than the intended recipient cannot discern that you've concealed another message unless they have this talent or some other ability to detect such things which people cannot normally detect, such as the hyper-awareness talent. His asset is the secret files that imply House Harkonnen has a secret store of spice on Arrakis. There you go. And then you have your reference again on the back. Our third player folio option is Natalia Khan. She's a Mentat. Now, for those of you who don't know much about Dune, in the background, like 10,000 years ago, there was a war against the thinking machines. They referred to them, I think, in the books. And it was a huge decimation of humanity, and so there's an agreement made across the galaxy that no more AI would ever be used again. So instead of AI, they have these people trained as mentats, where they take loads of mind-enhancing drugs and become hyper-calculating human machines, basically. So you're a human computer trained to process and store data with an efficiency beyond any mere machine. Play this character if you enjoy using your intellect to solve problems. Mentats are really cool in this game, by the way, and in the books as well. They tend to have like weird little lip stains and stuff because they drink sappho juice and the stuff that enhances your mind. So her ambition is to add something worthwhile to the sum of human knowledge. So she's more of a kind of driven by the seeking of knowledge itself rather than the ambitions of the house or her own rising in the ranks, which is quite interesting. So her talents include Advisor. When you choose this talent, select a single skill. Whenever you assist an ally and you use that skill, the ally you assist may re-roll a single d20 in their dice pool. That's very, very handy. You have Bolster as well. So once per scene, when an ally fails the skill test, you may immediately spend 2 points of momentum or add 2 threat to allow that ally to re-roll their dice pool. When they re-roll, they may use your discipline score instead of the skill they were using. So, and the discipline score here is 6, which is not bad. The best you can get in any drive or skill is 8. So, then we have Mentat Discipline. So intense mental conditioning and extensive training have developed your intellect into a potent and valuable thing. You have almost perfect recall for even the most complex data. When making an understand test that applies to recalling data, one of the d20s in your pool may be considered to have rolled a 1 instead of rolling it. So that's an automatic 2 successes when you have any understand test that applies to recalling something. So you have perfect recall as a trained mentat. So you're able to help people numerously by basically re-rolling a single d20 in the die pool when they fail a test. You can spend momentum or threat to do a re-roll and give them your discipline score, and you have perfect recall of any data that you might have encountered at any point. You also have a asset that's a notebook full of secrets and records written in your own personal code, so nobody else can understand it. So yeah, as I said, mentats are pretty cool, and very, very useful as support characters. Then we have Zafir Kalas, the Swordmaster. You're a highly trained fighter skilled with both blades and laser guns, though you prefer to meet your opponents face-to-face with steel. Play this character if you enjoy combat and swashbuckling action. He looks like a hard ass as well. He's got a kind of straight style Shoto sword. Pretty cool. His ambition is to fight a duel that history will remember. So he just wants to be known for his warrior skills above all. So he's got a number of drive statements. His top drive here is justice. I must speak for those whose lives I command. So he has a lot of responsibility that he feels for his men. His highest skill is battle, of course, for dueling and short blades. He's got 3 talents: decisive action. In a conflict, when you succeed at a battle test to remove an opponent's assets, and you bought 1 or more dice by generating threat, you may spend 2 points of momentum to remove a second enemy asset. Assets are basically things you can use in conflict that add to your ability to generate damage or to do other things that are important to the resolution of that conflict. He also has dedication. At the start of a scene, if there's no momentum in the group pool, roll 1d20. If you roll equal to or less than your discipline score, add 1 to the group momentum pool, which is amazing. Often, I think it's the same in Star Trek. When you move to a new scene, you lose 1 momentum kind of automatically. Because it doesn't, it represents there's a gap in time from one scene to another, and you're not quite as pumped up as you just were. But he can gain you 1 more if he rolls under discipline, which is pretty cool. He also knows how to find trouble. You can find the criminal element wherever you go. Wherever you are once per adventure, you can always contact the criminal underworld or black market as long as there is one. This doesn't mean they'll be well disposed towards you, just that you can find a contact. His asset is a fighting Kinjal short blade that once, so it is said, killed a Sardaukar. Sardaukar are the Emperor's elite troops, notoriously dangerous fighters, which you will well know if you have read the books. Finally, we have Alice Dominica, a Bene Gesserit spy master, dressed for the role, of course. Educated by the Bene Gesserit Sisterhood, your mental and physical abilities are trained to deadly effectiveness. Play this character if you enjoy manipulating secrets and destroying your opponents through guile and stealth. I love Bene Gesserit characters in this game as well. They really feel like they do in the books. You're kind of controlling things from the shadows. You're using prescient visions. You've got all kinds of interesting conditioning. Her ambition is to find a way to serve House Nagara and the Sisterhood equally. Interesting. Divided loyalties. So her top drive is faith. I trust my leaders to know what is best. And her strongest skill is discipline. So she's good at composure and espionage. She also has hyper-awareness. She can notice details too small for others to perceive. Whenever you spend momentum to obtain information about the current situation, your current location, or a person you can currently observe, you may ask 2 questions for the first point of momentum spent. Further, the limits of what others would be able to notice do not apply to you for any questions. So as we saw, one of our other guys, the spy master of sorts, he was able to be deceitful and inflict false traits on people or hide hidden messages and stuff like that. Those restrictions do not apply to our Bene Gesserit here. She can see through all of that. She also has a Mask of Power. Once per scene, you may create an asset at no cost, such as blackmail evidence or an owed favor, that will allow you to initiate an intrigue or espionage conflict with a person of your choosing. The asset is a lie, of course. You don't have anything, but your target doesn't know that. The asset is removed once the conflict is over, and if you are defeated, the fact that you were bluffing is exposed, and you suffer an additional complication. So you can pretend that you know something or have something on somebody. That'll give you an advantage in an espionage conflict with them. But if you defeat it anyway, or if you get found out, then you have an additional complication to deal with. Prana Bindu conditioning. This is a really good one. Basically, she has absolute control over her body. Every muscle and every nerve is under your control, and you have even mastered your own body chemistry and metabolism. Whenever you attempt a move or discipline test which relies on control of your body, you may re-roll a single d20. You can perfectly control your breathing, heart rate, and your internal organs, including the ability to choose whether to conceive a child and to determine the child's physical and genetic traits. Your major asset is a Bene Gesserit friend on Arrakis, an acolyte called Marie, who knows Arrakeen well. So yeah, that's your 5 folios. I think they're all great, interesting characters. They're all really well set up for their individual roles, so you can jump right into any of those pre-gens and have a good go of it. And now we get into all the cool accessories and stuff. So this right here, we have a momentum tracker. So players at any time can have a max of 6 momentum, and it reminds you of the costs of the main things you can do. So if you buy extra d20s for a roll, you normally have 2, of course. You can buy a third one for 1 momentum, a fourth one for 2 momentum on top of that, or a third die for 3 momentum. So if you want to roll a full hand of 5 die, you need to spend 6 momentum, basically. So each additional die adds cost over the previous one. But you can very often spend a point of momentum for a third die, and that can be really helpful. You can also use 2 points to create a trait, and that must relate to the action the character has just attempted, and it must be something that could reasonably result from that action. You can also obtain information, 1 point per question. But as we saw, the Bene Gesserit can get much more than others when they use this momentum for this use. So you can ask the game master 1 question about the current situation, which they must answer. They don't have to answer super clearly or interestingly, but yeah, they can do that. And on the flip side, it tells you about adding threat. So players can add to the threat pool to buy d20s in the same way as momentum. So 1 to 3 threat per die. They can ignore complications for 2 threat per complication. Some actions may escalate the situation, giving the game master 1 threat. That also happens in Star Trek. If you show up to a meeting with some adversaries with phaser rifles, for example, which are much scarier weapons than hand phasers, that'll escalate the situation and put threat in the pool. It's the same situation here. The game master may add to threat by threatening circumstances existing in the environment. So that's just 1 to 2 threat. And you can have non-player character bonus successes add to the threat pool instead of momentum. So there you go. So that's a really, really handy tracker. The game master can have just an absolute shitload of threat. I think there's you can have an unlimited amount basically and just keep spending it. And there's some guidelines in the rulebook on what you can do for big threat spend. So for example, you can spend 4 threat to have, several additional soldiers join a fight or something like that. So it gives you loads of ideas on how to spend threat. Here we have the spice tracker. So this is your spice harvesting kind of mini game that goes along with the campaign. So I won't go through the whole thing, but basically the game master will tell you where there's a spice blow. You can either accept or reject Harkonnen resistance. Then you need to analyze the spice, place your harvester, roll to see if a worm comes, roll to see if the Fremen come, roll for the production if you manage to get through all that, and then total up the spice that you get. And then if you can work out if you're exceeding, meeting targets, or if spice production is going terribly. And that all has effects on the strength of your hold on Arrakis. So it's a really cool element of this campaign. They also have this little brochure. It's like a tourist brochure for Arrakis, kind of, which gives you basic info on the planet. It's in the star system called Canopus. It's got 2 moons. It's a habitable class 3, although, I mean, parts of it are not really habitable because the deep desert is just insanely deadly. The governorship is Harkonnen, brackets current. Primary expert is the spice melange, along with alcohol, coffee, mining, and politics. The main languages spoken are Galach and Chakobsa, which is the Fremen language. Locations of interest are Arrakis, Carthag, the Polar Sink, which is the obviously one of the poles, Sentinel Rock, and Windsack. And then we have some details about culture, which are important. So, Arrakis is a desert planet. It's the only source in the galaxy for the spice melange, which is needed for space travel. So everybody fights over it, and it's the most important planet in the Imperium, basically. There's also barely any water, and most of the local water is imported. So wasting water in any way can really insult the locals. If you find yourself without water, please inform your travel guide, and they can do their best to source additional rations. There will be a surcharge for this service. Even in climate-controlled buildings, visitors should keep hydrated as much as possible and remain mindful of their water supply. The deserts are a marvel and a beautiful sight under the right conditions. However, they are also exceptionally dangerous, and fatal accidents are highly likely should a visitor not follow basic guidelines. Then they tell you about the forms of transport. So basically, never enter the desert using ground transport because regular vibrations draw sandworms. And then they tell you a bit about the sandworms, which are probably the most famous element of the Dune universe. Potentially hundreds of meters long, gigantic monstrosities that can gobble up an entire harvester. So basically, if one is coming, you have to just run. And they're not like statted up in this game. They're basically treated like a force of nature. Only the Fremen have some ways that they can use them, basically. Then it talks about the people of Arrakis. So you've got spice workers, local craftsmen, entertainers. You've got hospitality, industry. And then you've got the legendary Fremen who live in the deep desert in small tribal holdings. These are the Sieches. But they're rarely seen in the cities. The Fremen, of course, play a major role in the storyline of the books, especially the first 3. And talks about the 2 main cities. So Carthag is where House Harkonnen is based, and Arrakis is the older city. And basically, it's kind of a bit more basic, but it's got a very spectacular, like noble residence that you can visit, and it's got a large market as well. Then we have some handouts. So we've got so this is the audit given to House Harkonnen about their spice production. We've got a few other things, which I'll try not to spoil for you. Then we got a whole mess of tokens. So we've got momentum. We've got our threat. We've got spice blows. We've got harvesters. And we've got a House Harkonnen token there, which is always scary. Loads of cool stuff there. Then we have a map sheet as well. So this goes along with your kind of spice minigame thing. You have a certain area where you're trying to produce your spice. You can put your spice blows tokens out and try and get your equipment there before others get there and start tearing it up and tearing you up, namely the Harkonnens and or the Fremen. And then on the flip side, we have another map. So I won't spoil what this is for, but you can see, again, we're working with zones. This is kind of an internal area. Got some admin offices, storage, and when your characters move or you're moving assets that you have around, which could be people or devices or all kinds of stuff, you will kind of use your assets as well and move them around on the map unless they're being carried by a character of yours. So yeah, those 2 maps will come in the game. Then you have a dueling map. So dueling is pretty cool in this game. Basically, you have the target, which is the individual person, and then you have 2 areas of guard, so you can carry like your main weapon and an offhand weapon or some form of defense on the other side. as assets, and then basically you try to move your assets past or through your opponent's defenses and strike to get damage against the main target. It gets into real kind of psychological back and forth. It feels pretty intense, and it does really reflect the kind of dueling action that you read in the books. I really like that. On the back, you have a negotiation map. So, if you are trying to negotiate with CHOAM, which are the kind of the spice directorate, they're the kind of the people that deal with, the distribution and sale of spice. That's your main source of profit. So, this is how you'll use this negotiation map to work out how your negotiations go. Then we have at the very bottom our, actually there's 2 sets of dice in here. I'm not sure how that happened. I know why. Because I bought along with this box set, I bought the GM's kind of bundle, which included dice, GM screen, core rulebook, I think a logbook. So I actually have those 5 dice and these 5 dice as well. So more than enough to run at a table. You will see that the crits, the ones, are marked out by this little sandworm symbol, which is just super cool. There are other kinds of dice you can buy, of course. They've got House Atreides dice, which are in a really beautiful kind of blackish green color, where the crit symbol is the symbol for House Atreides. They've got Harkonnen dice, and they've got melange dice, which are kind of clear crystalline blue, like your eyes turn if you consume too much spice. Then we've got all these little stands here, which you can use to 3-dimensionalize your various NPCs and PCs on all the different maps. So, it's a really complete kind of campaign experience. There's loads of stuff going on in here. I don't believe there's anything... Is there anything under these? No, this is just kind of giving the box some more structure. Just make sure I'm not forgetting anything. So, in terms of cards, it has the name of the asset on one side and a description on the other. So you can get all kinds of stuff. Moon necklaces, dart guns, paracompass, poisonous snooper, useful when somebody might want to poison you. Fiber ropes, pulse swords, a couple of those. Mala pistols, so these are House Nagara specific stuff. Basics like glow globes that can follow you around and put light on the subject. Memo quarters to record messages. Emergency transmitters, useful in the desert. Personal shields for dueling. Omni Generator Mark 7. Which is a new form of power cell, allowing it to power whole factories. There you go. The Nightshade is a new form of oil lens that lets the user see so clearly in even pitch darkness that they can perceive the minutiae of facial expressions. It could be used for weapon targeting or general surveillance. So when you choose one of these assets to represent your house, it tells you as well what that means for your house. So if you pick the Mala rifle, it's got greater power and a longer range than most standard models. And then it says you're a military house with a strong warrior tradition and code of conduct. You also have a dedicated and well-trained army, and you rely on strength of arms to advance your house. Then we have NPC cards. So we've got Harkonnen soldiers with their stats on the back. They're just basic dudes, so the only focus they have is in battle. They do have talents, though. They are bold. And we have House Nagara soldiers. They have the talent of cautious, and their battle talent lies in pistols. Then we can have some spice smugglers, who their traits include being a smuggler, and they're good with stabbing people with short blades. And we can get a few of those. Then we've got some Fremen NPCs. We've got the Naib Musa with his stats on the back. He's a proper dude, the leader of a siege, so he has a lot of traits and talents, and he's a full character build, basically. We have named Fremen warrior, who is also not to be messed with. We have the Bene Gesserit Reverend Mother, Kadira L'Oreal Narilan. Again, tough in a very different way. We have the Spicing Guild Envoy. We have the CHOAM Spice Auditor, who checks on your production. We've got the Harkonnen Spy Master, who might be infiltrating you. We've got the Judge of the Change, who watches over the handover of Arrakis to you. We've got a Nagara military officer, who is helpful on the battlefield. We've got the Baron Harkonnen. Again, lots and lots of scary traits on him. We've got the Countess Sakura Nagara, So the leader of the house. We've got Kiro Jaro, lab technician. We've got a revolt leader. We've got factory workers, more factory workers. Chom negotiator, Nagara chief scientist. There you go, Dr. Erica Gagnon. You've got a Harkonnen captain. Looks a bit despondent, but, Arrakis is not the happiest place in the world. I can see why. We've got a black market contact. We've got Harkonnen mentats. I mean, a huge variety of cool people that you can meet, and these are, of course, the main characters that you can be at the end of the deck here. So, yeah, I mean, that's just one of the decks. Then you also have more assets over here. We've got the Astrolabe, we've got Minimic Film, which is send all data to... okay, so these are like plot points, I guess. I don't want to spoil too much of these. There's messages. There's some Harkonnens that can show up. They've all got their appropriate insignia. You've got the Fremen Attitude card. So they can be your enemy, which means you have +1 difficulty when dealing with them, and it also hurts your spice harvesting. Or they can be your allies, which gives you -1 difficulty and helps your spice harvesting. So better to have the Fremen on your side than not. These are injured cards you can hand out to players when they've been injured. Then you've got another potential complication or asset for Asham Pero's Attitude. You can have these special cards handed out for certain story points. You've got loads of helpful stuff. Basically, at different points in the adventure book, it'll tell you when to hand out these cards and what they're used for. Chom Influence, you can use as an asset. So basically, it means you have some leverage amongst the spice merchants of Chom. You can have stories of Harkonnen violence. You can carry Harkonnen secrets. You can have still suits, which of course allows you to function for weeks in the desert. But you need to be, to get a good one, you need to get a Fremen still suit, really. You can get laser guns, you can get electronics. The Kinjal, of course, one of our characters has that. And the famous Hunter Seeker, brutal and effective weapons of assassination. We saw that in the original first novel, of course. They need to be guided on the other side by somebody. So, I mean, there's just so much Dune in this box. It's amazing. So many things that you'll recognize from the first couple of books. I mean, all the backstabbing and intrigue is there. You've got spice blows, you've got worms, you've got dice with sandworms on them. I mean, you've got really, it's fantastic stuff. I really hope that this idea of the super starter set is the new norm for Modiphius, because, for me, this was a fantastic surprise at how good it is. I mean, it guides you through, many different types of conflict, including dueling. You've got the whole spice management thing, and now they've released an expansion book, actually, which is all about house management. Unfortunately, the supplement pricing has gone a bit crazy. They're charging £38 list price for a 128-page supplement, which for me is way too much. But apparently that's just part of the Dune license being expensive. And that's the way it's going to be from now on, which is a shame. So I pre-ordered a second print copy for much less from a different vendor, I'm sorry to say. But, it's a cost of living crisis. What are you going to do? Yeah, but basically, if you want to start playing Dune, and you should, because Dune is awesome, and if you love backstabbing people and having secret plans and duels and sandworms, this is the game for you. Yeah, this should probably go under here, under the README first. As you can see, I mean, this is fresh off the shelf, basically. I bought this after I bought the GM bundle, because I think it came out a little bit afterwards. But it's a fantastic value. I hope I didn't spoil too much. If you're a player, probably, try to forget some of the cards that you might have seen, so it'll be a surprise. I try not to spoil some of the ones that are supposed to be, important moments in the campaign. I haven't had a chance, obviously, to play this yet, but I've read through the adventure book. I think it's a great launching point. They've also made a follow-up book called Masters of Dune, which can be a direct continuation of what's in this box. Oops, bumped the camera, sorry. Or you can run it entirely separately. And it takes you beyond Dune out into the Imperium, brings in loads of other elements of the Dune universe. It's really, really great. So again, yet another reason to get your hands on this. Get a free PDF, the core rulebook. Then you got Masters of Dune when you get done with this. Yeah, it's great. I mean, I put it even perhaps above the tricorder set as far as the value proposition, because it comes with the actual free core rulebook as well as the adventure guide, which will how you pick up the game as you go. So yeah, I mean, I wholeheartedly recommend this. I will talk more about the Dune RPG in the future, because shortly I will own everything that's in print that's worthwhile. Not all the collector's editions and stuff, that would just be weird, but some version of all the books. Dune was always my favorite sci-fi series growing up, so I will obsessively buy the whole line, as I have done with Star Trek. So you will see more Dune on the channel. But anyway, let me know if you played through this. Let me know what you thought of it. I think it looks great. I'm really excited to get started on it, hopefully someday soon. I'm just getting set up on a whole online role-playing hub for me and my friends to get them to try a bunch of systems, including 2D20. We'll probably start with Star Trek and then move into Dune for an initial go at this campaign. And if it really grabs people, we'll carry on to Masters of Dune. So I'm hoping that'll work. In any case, yeah, I give it my highest recommendation if you're a fan of Dune and if you want to try out the 2D20 system. If you have any more questions about, what's in the box, about other aspects of the line or of the game, throw them in the comments. Always happy to hear from you guys, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. In the meantime, stay well, and I shall see you soon. All right, bye-bye.